Hey guys, welcome back to Supposedly Fun. I'm Greg. Not that long ago I did a video about authors I'm ashamed I haven't read yet. Most of those were classic authors, pretty acknowledged to be part of the canon. That got me thinking, who are currently active authors who could become part of the canon in the future? So I wanted to do a video about that. I'm dividing it into three different categories. The first is up-and-comers. Then there are the obvious choices who already feel like they're part of the canon. And then there are the people who could get there, but it's a little too soon to tell. And these are authors that I think have a really good shot at becoming part of the canon. The first one, I've talked about a lot on this channel, so I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on it. It's Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. I think Americana is one of my favorite books. I've heard really good things about her others. The only other book of hers that I've read was her TED Talk called We Should All Be Feminists. But I've heard really good things about her other books. Definitely want to read them. I think she is positioned very well to become a classic. I would be surprised if she doesn't. The work that she's already published is very well received, and there's nothing but promise for the future from her. So I would very much look forward to seeing what she does. Next is Jesmyn Ward. I haven't talked about her on this channel very much, but I really enjoy the books of hers that I have read. She has actually published 5 different books. I've only read 2 of them. The ones I've read are her National Book Award winners, Salvage the Bones and Sing Unburied Sing, both of which were phenomenal. She has also written, there was another fiction book, the name of is escaping me, but then she has also published 2 nonfiction books, The Men We Reaped and The Fire This Time. I really think she's building a great foundation of work. The fact that she's mixed in nonfiction, I think speaks very well. Like I said, Salvage the Bones and Sing Unburied Sing both won National Book Awards. I will be shocked if she does not eventually win a Pulitzer Prize. I think her career is that promising. I definitely think she could be a future classic. Then there's Colson Whitehead, who has won a Pulitzer Prize. I think his early career really set a tone where he discussed race in very interesting ways, especially in books like John Henry Days. He took a bit of a left turn when he did a kind of zombie novel, what was it called? Zone 1, I think, which, by the way, I hated. But then he came back and won a Pulitzer Prize for The Underground Railroad. He has a book called The Nickel Boys coming out, so I think he's come back from that Zone 1 departure that he took. And I think he's really cementing his status as a voice, kind of like similar to Jesmyn Ward, on kind of an authority on this topic of race. But he approaches it in very interesting ways. The Underground Railroad has some very interesting twists in a format and structure. I think he will definitely be somebody people will be talking about for many years to come. Then there's an author I haven't read, but who's kind of, I think has a really good shot at becoming canon. It's Rachel Kushner. So Telex from Cuba got really good reviews. The Flamethrowers has gotten really good reviews. Her more recent book, The Mars Room, is a bit love it or hate it, but I think she's built such a good foundation for herself that she has a very good shot at becoming canon. It's kind of similar to Jesmyn Ward. I think she is destined to at least be in the conversation for Pulitzers in the future. I would not be surprised if she wins one either. Her books are kind of different from each other, so it's very interesting to see where she's going to go next. I can't wait to read this one in particular. So there you go, that's Rachel Kushner. And finally, in the up-and-comers section, there's Roxane Gay. She has written 2 novels, I think, An Untamed State and Difficult Women, and she has edited a Best American Short Stories collection. She's written some nonfiction. And similar to Jesmyn Ward, I think that she's a very well-rounded writer. She approaches things from very different angles. She is the most political person on this list, or at least the most overtly political person on this list, which could work for her or against her, but I think a lot of people like her. I think she's well on her way to becoming part of the canon, and I have not read any of her books, so I definitely want to try to do it. And then I've heard that An Untamed State is a little bit brutal, but very good, so I definitely want to try to get to that one. So there are the up-and-comers. Now, there are people who are kind of obvious choices, who seem like they're part of the canon already, but they are still alive, still actively writing. The first one is Haruki Murakami. I love The Wind-Up Bird Chronicles. It is one of my all-time favorite books. It's fantastic. He's continually in the conversation for the Nobel Prize. He has not won it yet. I would be surprised if he does not eventually do it. Like I said, I've only read 2 of his books. I loved The Wind-Up Bird Chronicle, and after I read it, I was very much looking forward to reading more of his books. Unfortunately, I managed to get an advanced reader's copy of Colorless, Tsuguru Tazaki and His Years of Pilgrimage, and I hated this book. I hated it. I just really did not like this one, and it completely stalled my progress working through his books. I know I've heard some good things like Kafka on the Shore, Norwegian Wood. If you have recommendations for where I should go to get over the bad taste in my mouth that this one left, I would very much enjoy that. But I think, like I said, I think Murakami is destined to win a Nobel Prize. I think he is absolutely somebody who is going to be part of the canon and who will be talked about for a very long time. Then, of course, there is Toni Morrison. I've only read one of her books, but it's not one of her more known books. She is a Nobel laureate. She has won a Pulitzer Prize. She is one of the most famous American authors. I absolutely think she is destined to be a classic author, read for many, 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 many years. All right, and then we have Cormac McCarthy, who I have also not talked about on this channel, but even though I actually love The Road, which he won a Pulitzer Prize for, his style is not to everyone's liking. He does not use quotation marks. He can write really long sentences. Sometimes some books make it feel like he hates punctuation, but I think he does it in a really interesting way. And I've enjoyed the books of his that I've read. I've only read 2. There was this one, and I read No Country for Old Men. I actually enjoy The Road more because to me there's almost, it's very open to interpretation, but to me there's almost a glimmer of hope in The Road, which makes it very poignant, whereas No Country for Old Men is very nihilistic, kind of very fatalistic, and it almost seems like, well, what's the point? Everything is doomed and horrible, and why do anything? Blood Meridian is a book of his that I have had on my TBR for about 10 years and have not gotten around to, really want to at some point. I've also heard good things about All the Pretty Horses and some of his other books. So there you go, that is Cormac McCarthy. And then we have Margaret Atwood. Now, Margaret Atwood feels like she's part of the canon already, mostly because of The Handmaid's Tale and the resurgence it has had in recent years. Not only because of the TV show, but because politics, especially the last few weeks, are really making it feel like this was a prophetic book when it was published. But part of why I think she'll be part of the canon is that she has a really solid foundation of books to fall back on. It's not just The Handmaid's Tale. It's definitely her most well-known book, but she is also a Booker Prize winner because of The Blind Assassin. I got this book for free when I was at Borders, which is why it has a sticker that says staff copy on it. And then she has Oryx and Crake, which was a recent, I believe it was part of a trilogy of books, and I have not read this one yet either, but, you know, I think it just goes to show, so it's not just The Handmaid's Tale that she's got going for her. She's got a lot going for her. All right, then we have Stephen King. I think Stephen King is very up and down. He's had some struggles with addictions, but I think part of why he will definitely be a classic is not just because he has sold so many books and because he is such a known author. It's because his writing is so varied that there's something that will speak to everyone. I think he's varied enough that everybody can relate to something that he has written. And he's gone through phases where he's written some wacky stuff, but I think he's a very solid writer when he's on his game. Definitely destined to be a classic. All right, and then we have Louise Erdrich. My favorite book of hers that I've read so far is Plague of Doves, which was a finalist for the Pulitzer Prize, and I really think should have won. It's fantastic. She is probably most known, however, for writing this book, Love Medicine, which has been called a modern classic. The other book of hers that I have read is The Roundhouse, which is very good, but it's kind of a follow-up to Plague of Doves without actually being a sequel. I like Plague of Doves a lot more, but this is also very good. It was a finalist for the National Book Award. I don't think it won. But I almost put Sherman Alexie on this list, but I feel like Louise Erdrich is probably more likely to get there. I've had more conversations with people where I mention Sherman Alexie, and they say, who? But they're more likely to know Louise Erdrich if I mention her. Like I will mention her, they'll say, oh, I like her. So I feel like maybe it's just my experience that's biasing me, but I feel like she is more known than Sherman Alexie. All right, so those are the obvious choices who already feel like they're part of the canon. Now let's get into some people where it's a little too soon to tell. The first one, you can argue with me if you want. Some people would say he's an obvious choice, already feels like he's part of the canon. It's George Saunders. Now, I think part of it is that he's very popular in literary circles, but I don't know how popular he is outside of them, or how known he is outside of literary circles. And I think that is why it's too soon to tell. I think he can get there, but I'm not sure he has quite locked it down yet. So we'll have to see. I think Lincoln in the Bardo becoming a Booker Prize winner was definitely a move in that direction. If his next few books continue like that, I think he'll get there. But right now, I think he is mostly known within literary circles only. Maybe I'm wrong. Tell me what you think. The other one is Sally Rooney. Now, for her, I think it's too soon to tell because she's only published 2 books. This one and Normal People and Conversations with Friends, both of which are very well beloved by her fans. But with only 2 books, I think it's really hard to say where her career is going to go. It seems promising. I think she's also very love it or hate it. Like, I read Conversations with Friends, and I liked her writing from this nerd standpoint, but it was very meh about the book itself. And I've heard the same thing about Normal People. There are people who love it, people who hate it. So I think we need to see where her career goes a little more before we can definitively say one way or another what's going to happen. All right, and then we have Marlon James, who is a Booker Prize winner for A Brief History of 7 Killings. This book right here, he had written another fiction book before that, The Book of Night Women, which was a novel. Now, the reason I think it's too soon to tell is that, well, that's only 2 books, and although this one was a runaway success, I don't know really anyone who's read The Book of Night Women, and he took a left turn after Brief History of 7 Killings to write a fantasy book, Black Leopard, Red Wolf, which I've heard very love it or hate it things about, mostly this leaning toward the hate side. And I think that's why it's too soon to tell, because that is Black Leopard, Red Wolf is the first, and I believe, a trilogy of books, so that's going to be taking up a lot of his time. It's going to be interesting to see where his career goes. Maybe that will help him broaden his horizons a little bit. Maybe he's going to peter out. We gotta see. All right, and then we have another controversial pick, because he's a very well-known author, but let me just tell you who it is. It's Michael Chabon. The reason I think it's too soon to tell is that I think he needs another book on the level of this one, The Amazing Adventures of Cavalier and Clay, in order to get there. He's got other books that are good. The Mysteries of Pittsburgh is pretty good. Some people are big fans of Wonder Boys, which I have not read. But I feel like when it comes to Michael Chabon, right now, this is the book that is readily identified with him. And I feel like to become part of the canon, you need more. And I don't think any of his other books have quite gotten there. It's possible that his accumulated work will get him there in the end, but gotta wait and see. And finally, in the too soon to tell category, I'm putting Karen Russell. Now, this is an advanced reader's copy of Vampires in the Lemon Grove. She was a Pulitzer Prize finalist for Swamplandia, the year that famously no one won the prize. And she just released another collection of short stories called Orange World, I believe. I think she has a lot of fans. She also has a lot of detractors. I actually sit in both camps. I really enjoy parts of Swamplandia, but she can fall victim to kind of purple prose. She describes things a lot, and it can get to be too much. So I think this is a case of somebody who we need to see where her career goes a little bit before we know if she will become part of the canon or if she'll fade away. I think had she won the Pulitzer for Swamplandia, or if she wins a Pulitzer for another one, or any other major award, she might be positioned better to do it, but I'm not sure she's there yet. She has potential, but she's not there yet. So, those are some authors that I think are going to be classic, could be classic. I would definitely love to hear your opinions. If you think I'm crazy for any of these, let me know. If there's somebody you think I omitted, let me know that as well. Like I said, I stuck to currently active writers, nobody who's been gone. Yeah, so I'd love to hear your opinion. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. I gotta go. I'll be back again, though. And until then, happy reading.